Well, I had been friends with the Chavoya family for some time. You know, we call each other family, we really do. And so when she got pregnant, we were all excited. You know, she delivered the baby, and then when she brought the baby home, we were part of that. And then all through, you know, the first few months of his life, we've been, you know, holding him and enjoying him and watching him grow. Well, when he was about 10 months old, he had a pretty decent spell of vomiting, and they were concerned about him being dehydrated, so they went to St. Luke's. And they brought him in, and they, I guess, hooked him up to an IV and got him hydrated, and everything was fine. And then when they wanted to leave, the doctor basically said they couldn't leave. And so they said, no problem, you know, it was under coercion, but they said, no problem, we'll stay in the hospital until you discharge us. What happened is a couple days later, they finally discharged him, said you can go home, but the doctor, Natasha Erickson, had already called CPS. Because, I mean, they just came into St. Luke's for help. They just came in to get him hydrated. They've been working with the doctors and trying to figure out what was going on. And, you know, there was no neglect, no abuse, no imminent danger, nothing like that. And so now CPS is involved, and they start to require the parents to bring baby Cyrus to doctors' weight checkups. Marissa takes baby Cyrus in to get it weighed. And then Thursday or Friday comes around and she wakes up and she doesn't feel good. So she gets on the phone, she calls him and says, hey, I'm not feeling well. You know, I'd like to, I'm not gonna make it in this morning, but I would like to reschedule. Well, when they got this phone call, or when she didn't show up, actually what happened, then they issued a bolo out to the Meridian Police to take the baby.
For what reason are you arresting him?
Guys, they're trying to take baby Cyrus from us. My husband's getting arrested.
Right now you're being detained.
Detained for what?
We're not going to screw with you. You understand?
Okay, but for what? For what reason?
Okay.
Please don't take him.
I won't take him. I'll stand right here with you. We're going to take him to the hospital. And if you want to go, you can come.
Can I ride with him,
Yes,
please?
you can. Okay. We'll get an ambulance here to transport you guys. Okay?
You want a hand? You good?
You're going to want this.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm not going to leave him.
Well, this is how it's going to be,
I
okay?
can't leave him. You understand what happens when the state takes custody of babies? I've seen this so many times. I can't be that next person. I can't.
At this point, you need to give him to the EMT, and you can go on your merry way with your friends and your family who's out there.
That's not Mary at all.
Or I remove him from you and you go to jail. You need to make that decision. You need to make it now, please.
I won't let him go.
Okay. She's going to jail.
Put your hands on your back, please, okay?
Cyrus!
Let's go this way. Take
Cyrus, I'm so sorry.
And sure enough, I showed up about probably like just a few minutes after baby Cyrus showed up. Now, the interesting thing is, and I began to demand that they give the baby back, and others that came were demanding that they give this baby back, you know, being pretty demanding about it, that this was wrong, that they need to give this baby back. Interesting enough, they took the baby to Meridian St. Luke's Hospital, and we have in the discovery and the doctor and the CPS notes and all of that they had no intention on admitting him into the hospital for health care. That wasn't the plan. They actually had foster parents there at the hospital that they were just going to transfer them to and then send them off. I ended up getting arrested in Meridian, insisting that they give the baby back. I booked out, and the next morning we again activated the People's Rights Network, and we had, you know, I think a little over 400 people, you know, at the hospital that next morning. And they're informed of what's going on, and they're upset, and they should be upset. You know, this should not have happened. Now, Meanwhile, in the hospital, baby Cyrus is now, going a couple days without nutrition. I just want to point out that all these needles and IVs and feeding tubes and all of these things that they were bottle and formula and all these things that they were doing was just to compensate for his mother's milk. And his mother was outside the hospital crying and begging to come into the hospital to feed her baby. And then, with the pressure that we were constantly putting on people outside, eventually within, I think it was around 6 days, they called the family and said, hey, we want to give baby Cyrus back. They had no justification to take the baby in the first place. And they could see this and understand this after the fact, and started backing away from this. But that wasn't the end for Diego and I.
If you've never met Ammon Bundy, I think the biggest thing, when he was running for governor and people would start, yeah, I don't like Ammon Bundy, he did this, he did that. And I said, just please do me a favor and go meet him, shake his hand and see what it feels like. Just see what your heart feels like. Because people, I don't have a TV, people listen to the TV, it's all this pumped up lies. And it's really sad that people fall for it. And sometimes I think about getting a TV and then somebody tells me some other lie they saw. It's like, I don't even want to get a TV. The other day at the gym, the commercials were on it. I don't think I even want it in my house. I don't know how you filter out the lies and the truth. People just need to meet Ammon Bundy and see what it feels like. Listen to him. If you believe in Jesus Christ, listen to him and see what he is. Look at how he and his wife treat their kids. There's no way he would ever break the law or do something to harm anyone. I mean, if you ever need help, you just call him, So that's what keeps me wanting to help whatever I can.
That's what it is. There's only right and wrong. And this was right. It was the right thing to do. It's gotten out of hand, and I think it's unfair. I mean, it's unbelievable what they're doing to this man and his family. It's like he's a hardworking, good, productive man in society with the most beautiful family, and it's like he needs to get on with his business of feeding this family and raising this family and participating in the family activities, and they're stopping him from that because he has a loud voice and he's telling the truth, and the truth is hurting those people. And that's I think the gist of it all. So, this could be, they want this man silenced, and it maybe not just the local St. Luke's that wants him silenced. Maybe it's still a carry on of that federal stuff when they lost in court, they blew their court case, and I think those people, when they get egg on their face, they want to wipe it off.
Well, the corruption of the Ada County Court is pretty deep, and that judge did not do what the law requires her to do, which the law requires her to default if I don't respond. And it says in the Criminal Rules of Procedure, Idaho Criminal Rules of Procedure, Rule 55, it actually says that the court must enter default if the defendant does not respond and defend himself. But she would not enter default. She allowed the case to remain open and allowed St. Luke's, Holland and Hart to build up this massive legal bill that has now over $500,000, and allowed them to amend the complaint 4 times, bringing it from $300,000 to $7.5 million. And then at the end, also issued an arrest warrant because I wouldn't obey a gag order that she put on the entire case. I wouldn't stay silent. Which, to be honest with you, I didn't really say a whole lot about the case until I could see that they were trying to throw me in jail and just trying to crush me. You know, it's just complete abuse. Now we're over a year later, and she has allowed them to, you know, seek for punitive damages of $7.5 million and all the legal fees, which, you know, has got to be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million in legal fees on their end. And I have a warrant for my arrest. And I think, you know, to sum it up, the message is if we take your baby, you know, you can't say anything about it, you can't do anything about it, you can't bring attention to it, you just have to shut up and sit down and let us do whatever we want with you. That's what they're saying. And they're not just saying that to me and Diego and the Chavoya family. They're saying that to everybody. If you say anything, we are going to crush you. So you have to be silent. And the court's going to actually enforce your silence. And I just couldn't allow that to go on. I wasn't going to be silent and allow myself to just get crushed while the wickedness, in my view, was clearly on their side. They were in the wrong. And I hadn't done anything wrong. I had said the truth. I used the tools that our founder gave us, to the right to free speech, the right to assemble, the right to grieve our government, all protected rights. And because of that, I'm being crushed financially and crushed to the courts. And like I've said, you know, I'm not a victim here. I don't want people to think that I'm a victim or trying to go with the victim mentality. I could have stayed home. I could have avoided the whole thing and just stayed home. But I couldn't have lived with myself knowing that I had the power to do something and see my, you know, one of my best friend's grandbaby just get taken and thrown around throughout the system, maybe even lose his life in the hospital that they went to try to save him, to help him. And so I had to act, and I believe that I did the right thing, and you know, that's why we're here today, because I'm at the point where I'm not planning on allowing them to take and arrest me. I'm looking for many other remedies, including people's help, to understand what's really going on here and how dangerous this is, how dangerous it is for the state, the courts, and massive institutions to unite together to try to crush basically the voice of people who are standing against something that was very wrong. It's been an interesting week, to say the least, for my family and I. You know, of course, last week there was a warrant for my arrest that was issued. And it was a civil warrant for a civil case. And I'm sure most of you know most of the history. But I don't believe, and the more I go back and I look at what is happening and what caused this to happen here. What caused the sheriffs to come up my driveway, just flying on my driveway, to come arrest me at my own house. The thing that caused it was myself and others standing for a little baby. That's what it was. A little baby and their family. And it's that pure. It's that clean. And there's nothing nefarious that's gone on in between that on my part or the others' parts. But yet it has led to a path where a judge issues a warrant and the sheriff and his deputies come flying up my driveway, pounding on my door, saying, "Come out, you have a warrant for your arrest, we're executing this warrant, and you are to come out." How do we get to this point where standing for a baby in such a pure cause brings you to this? And what happened now, because we used free speech, because we assembled, and because we grieved our government for redress, what happened? They gave the Cyrus back, they backed away from that, and then they said, okay, what can we do to make sure they don't do this again? What can we do? And they went to the drawing board. Don't you think they didn't? They went and said, look, let's assess this situation. What can we do? And you know what they said? We can't do anything to hold them accountable through the criminal procedures. And so where do they go? Civil. They go, well, we could use the civil procedures. They want to destroy me. They want to destroy my family. They want to destroy the People's Rights Network, the network and the community that brought these people together. That's what they want. And so that's what they're going after. And I'm telling you that they are never, ever going to stop until someone stops them. And it may come down to me having to do it myself if I can, which I probably won't be able to, or my friends helping me do it. On Monday morning, when I saw these sheriff vehicles come flying up my driveway, a feeling that I've never felt before came over me. An uneasiness. It was the first time that it had ever come to my home. First time. And now I got my children, my wife, you know. And it was completely different. And all I could do is get on my knees and start praying and calling my friends. And that's what I did. We activated the People's Rights Network. And while they're pounding on my doors and so forth, people are coming on their way, my neighbors. And I can't tell you, and I emphasize this, I cannot tell you the peace that came over me as soon as the first person came. And then the second, and then the third. And within about 30 minutes, there's probably about 35 people that were here. And I felt completely safe. Completely safe after just a few minutes of them being here. And what were they doing? No, they weren't carrying their AK-47s or AR-15s. They were carrying their cameras, their phones. They were filming. And I felt completely safe. And the sheriff's deputies, they backed completely away. They didn't know what to do, and then they left. And they haven't been back since. Yeah, that is what.
Times I've heard him speak, and the Spirit has touched my heart to where I know what he's saying is the truth. You know, and that's why I was able to get behind him and work really hard. You know, and I think that's one of the problems with the people today is they think that freedom is free. No, freedom has a responsibility, and you have to make sacrifices for it, at least enough sacrifice to find out what your elected officials are doing while they're there. Because if you make no sacrifice, you're just like a parent who doesn't bother to sacrifice for their kids, and their kids end up getting in trouble, and they end up in the custody of the state because they're off doing their own thing or whatever. You know, we have a freedom, but we also have a responsibility that goes with it. So, you know, most people don't do anything. They don't want to get involved in politics. You know, politics is like, oh, who has time for that? Well, you might as well just say who has time for freedom, because it's going away really fast. But I have hope. I have hope that enough people will wake up that there'll at least be places where people can unite in brotherly love and kindness and care for one another.
In the New Testament, you find out that St. Luke was a doctor. He was a healer, and so hospitals all across the world have used St. Luke's name for their medical facilities and so forth. And the hospital is there to help people. They're there to get people through and help them through some of the most difficult things in their life. And the baby Cyrus and his mother and father, they went to St. Luke's Hospital for help. And they went there believing that they would help them, that there would be no issue, that it would be a positive thing. And it ended up being a nightmare because they ended up, bringing the state, getting the state involved and accusing them of things that were not even close to happening. They ended up asserting an authority over the family that was inappropriate and uncalled for and unwarranted. And so, that's the first part. This hospital was trusted to help this family, and they didn't. They caused a tremendous more amount of hardship. And then when people like baby Cyrus's grandfather and myself stand up and say something about it, then they come after us and ultimately are trying to take our home and make my family homeless. And everything that I have ever, made in my life, try to take that and put my family in despair and ultimately homeless. And I don't think in any way that this is what St. Luke would want. No way. I don't think this is the role of a hospital. This is not what hospitals should be doing. And this, kind of unity or fusion between the hospital and the state, the CPS, I just don't believe that it was designed this way. I think hospitals were meant to help and not hurt. And it seems like, especially in this case, and who knows how many other cases, that they've sure hurt way more than they've helped.
Do your own independent research. Go on freedomman.org, read the story about baby Cyrus, look at the videos. Go to YouTube and look at Ammon's videos like she said, if you have the opportunity to walk up and shake his hand and meet him, I can always tell when somebody's talking smack about him and that they've never met him. Because there's nobody, I don't know a soul that walks away after meeting him that talks about him the way those people do. It's just obvious they've never met him. He's not that person. That's a fictional character that they've built up about him. It's not true.
So we come here and share food every night, and it's like, okay, is this what a mob does? But people believe it, Turn off the TV. These are people that if I ever needed help and I had the guts to ask, they show up.
Well, I hope that he doesn't get thrown in jail or harmed in any way, and that the truth continues to be told. People need to know the truth.
And we'd like to bring awareness to people to see what's really happening. It's totally unfair what's happening to a family. Then it could happen to somebody else tomorrow if we don't stand. What they have done to him through the court is just, it's not okay. Let him have his life back. He's a loving father and husband, and he's a great man. I'd be proud to have him as my son, and he just needs to have his life back. And that's all I'm hoping and praying for, a miracle, because we need a miracle.